Hey, it's Grant with Grant Bakes, and in today's video, I'm gonna show you how to make your own cultured butter. You can think of cultured butter like regular butter with an extra probiotic tang to it. This butter takes a little extra time and attention to make, but it's a great treat to have on top of sourdough bread. So let me show you how to make it. To make cultured butter, we need to have some cultured cream. So grab some heavy whipping cream. I'm using 16 fluid ounces. Then an easy way to add cultures to cream is to use yogurt. I'm using plain Greek yogurt. You can use any kind of yogurt you want as long as there's active cultures in it and there's no sugar or flavorings added. Then pour your cream into some kind of clean jar or vessel where it can ferment. You're not going to need to leave any room for it to rise because cream is not going to rise when it cultures. And there we go, almost 16 fluid ounces of cream. I used a little bit in my coffee, but I thought no one would notice. Oh well. Add 1 tablespoon of the yogurt into your cream. That's all you need, is just a tablespoon. And just like if you mix yogurt with milk, it's gonna turn into more yogurt. If you mix yogurt with cream, it's actually gonna turn into cultured cream. And you do not need to heat the cream up before adding in the yogurt. Room temperature cream will work just fine. So this is what the cream looks like at the starting point, day 1. We're just gonna let this thicken up at room temperature for a day or two. And I really want you to see how this cream changes over time. The cultures in the yogurt are going to thicken this cream up, and it's going to get a little bit tangier, and it's just going to gain a little bit extra flavor that regular cream doesn't have. Now cover up your cream with plastic wrap or something just to keep things from falling in. It doesn't need to be airtight, it just needs to be covered. Then move your cream to somewhere on your counter where it's room temperature, maybe next to your sourdough starter, and let it ferment for a whole day. Then after a day, this is the result. This is what my cream was looking like after 24 hours. It was definitely thicker than the day before. I was even seeing little floating kind of globs, and I was wondering if those were from the yogurt, but I actually think those were new. Those were from the fermentation over 24 hours. So here's the before shot. It was definitely thinner yesterday, and then here's the after shot. Much thicker. It didn't seem thicker, but then when I looked at the video from the day before, I could tell how much thicker it really was. You could definitely churn this cream into butter right now, but I'm gonna let it sit for another day and see if I can get it even thicker. Then after 24 hours, I checked on the cream and I was absolutely blown away by how thick it got after the second day. This was like as thick as mayonnaise or, I don't know, some kind of thick, fatty yogurt. It was just crazy thick. And that's just cream that's been cultured with a little tablespoon of yogurt over 2 days. I thought that was pretty awesome. So when you're ready to turn your cultured cream into cultured butter, you're gonna need something to churn it or blend it. You can use a blender. There's videos out there on YouTube for that, but I'm gonna be using a stand mixer with a whisk attachment. So I'm just putting all of my cream into the mixer. And once you've got all your cream in there, you don't need any other ingredients. It's just time to mix. I say start on low and continually move it up to a higher speed until your cream starts to look a little bit like this. Just get thicker as you go, just like you're making whipped cream, because you literally are just making whipped cream at this point, and eventually you'll get to this whipped cream stage, as you can see here on the spatula. Yeah, this is pretty much sugar-free whipped cream, which wouldn't be very good, but we're on our way to butter. Now keep mixing on medium to high speed until you get to this point. You'll kind of see the whipped cream fall apart and turn a little bit yellow. And that's okay, just kind of scrape down the sides of the bowl and keep mixing. Just keep going until you start to hear kind of like a sloshing sound, just like this. That sound tells you that the butter is separating from the liquid, the buttermilk, and that pretty much you don't need to whisk the butter anymore. This is what you're looking at. This is the butter that's separated from the buttermilk. Now there is still some liquid left inside this butter. There's some residual buttermilk. So we're gonna have to do some manual labor to squeeze out the buttermilk from the butter. One of the best ways I know how to do this is to get a bowl and fill it with ice water or really cold water. Just transfer all the butter into that bowl since the liquid and fat don't mix. This is gonna provide the perfect environment for us to separate the fat from the buttermilk liquid. And then just this leftover buttermilk that you had in the mixing bowl, you can pour that into a separate container and use that for other recipes. I actually used this exact buttermilk as part of the liquid in a loaf of sourdough bread, and it was really good. It made a really soft loaf of bread. then yeah, this is kind of the weird part. You're just gonna squeeze the butter together in your hands. You're trying to get all of the butter into one clump. You want all the butter to come together. And then once it's together in just one solid clump, you'll be able to keep squeezing out that buttermilk. I suggest using your hands for this, but you can also use a spatula if you want to do something different. Some people like to use a spatula and just press the butter into itself a bunch of times until everything comes together. Either way, once you've got most of the butter separated from the liquid, trade out that water for some fresh water so it's clear and you can see everything that's going on there. And then just keep squeezing the butter a bunch of times until you release as much buttermilk from it as you can. You don't want buttermilk to stay in that butter because it does turn rancid faster than just plain butter does. So if you keep your butter out at room temperature, you don't want any buttermilk in there at all. And now is the time to add a few pinches of sea salt into the butter. A lot of people wonder if they can keep this as unsalted butter because bakers like to use unsalted butter in their baked goods. I say don't do that. Make salted butter. Don't put this in your baked goods because the reason you want cultured butter is for the flavor. You want that tangy flavor on top of your toast or whatever you're using it on. And so just salt your butter, use it on top of stuff. Don't put this in your baked goods because the flavor is just totally going to disappear. Some of the best ways to store your butter are in either parchment paper or plastic wrap. I like using plastic wrap because it's a little bit more moldable, but go with parchment paper if that's what you have and that's what you want to use. I just take a sheet of plastic wrap and place the butter on top and then just kind of fold over the plastic over top of the butter, and then you just kind of mold the butter however you want. I'm going for this kind of cylinder tube, and then I'm just going to roll it a few times to get it into the shape that I want. And the butter just feels so cool and moldable at this point. It's really cool just playing around with something that you made yourself. Obviously, you can shape it however you want. Shape yours into a tube or a block or a stick or even a swan if you can do something like that. Whatever you want, it's your butter. At this point, your butter is ready to store. I recommend storing it in the fridge. Even if you've salted it, put it in the fridge. It's going to keep a lot better and for a lot longer. But I'm just going to use this fresh on a piece of toast. So here's a piece of sourdough that I made a few days ago. And I'm going to take just a little chunk, or let's be honest, a bigger chunk than that. And I'm going to enjoy this the way that it was meant to be enjoyed, on some delicious sourdough toast. This butter is really good and just a little bit tangy, and it's definitely different than any butter that I've bought from the store, and I really like it a lot. If you like making things yourself, this is definitely a project worth trying. And if you're interested in more of these little fermentation projects I'm doing more during February, doing a little fermentation February. So be on the lookout for more videos. Subscribe to the Grant Bakes YouTube channel for more videos on bread, sourdough, and pizza. And check out my other fermentation videos that I've done so far right here.